All right, so that there are no stones left unturned, I'll give you the basic presentation that I would have given in the court case, Champaign County, Illinois, 2018 TR 5950. A case that starts with a tax. I didn't pay a tax for a license plate renewal for the purpose of claiming a court case so that I could introduce and demand that the First Amendment right of redress of grievances must be the law and must be kept. It's also the fifth guaranteed right of the state of Illinois Constitution. And the court completely discards the Constitution, both state and national, and locks the door, as they did in this case. Although it looked like it might go through in the beginning, the robots won, or more correctly, a tiny rule governed constitutional law and threw it out. As is consistent with the judiciary, does not allow any form or any part or any word from the Constitution to be within a court case unless the public is watching, so they cannot avoid it. And of course, the public was not watching, and that means that they can do whatever they want to, irregardless of the consequences. Nonetheless, this is the basic presentation that would have been included in the court case trial. As soon as the prosecutor saw my little notebook, and I told him how this trial was going to go. Let's see, you can see just a little bit what the case was. You can go to the Champaign County Court and see. Anyway, he read it for 10 seconds and he basically immediately motioned for a trial dismissal. Even though I told him this is a reading trial, it's going to take 20 minutes to read this, and I'm going to give a 10-minute presentation. And then the jury can, do what they want with the rest of it. So, even though the jury was sitting outside the door, they were not allowed in at this point. The prosecutor refused to prosecute. In other words, they said, we don't want to be in this courtroom, so we don't have to be in this courtroom. And the judge said, if they're not prosecuting you, you have to leave. I said, it's not fair. Don't want to do that. I said, too bad. So, regardless, you're on your own from this point. But I'll help you with this last little bit, just for the sake of it. One of the things that you need to know, basic understanding of realities that are required to give some kind of understanding to what the process of our threats are as far as the energy experimentation that's going on, or at least in this one particular extreme, and there are many. But in the worst extreme possible, at iter.org, they're trying to ignite sunfire on Earth by claiming that it's a part of the fire is an energy that comes from combining atoms together. And their claim is that they can control it by taking hydrogen away. But they also say that they've given up on that, and they proved they couldn't do it at San Francisco Lawrence Livermore Laboratories, because they had 192 lasers, which they said generated 180 million degrees on this one tiny little spot they were all focused on at 500 million psi. And they could not do what they said they would do. Thank God for that. Nonetheless, we turn to ITAR, which is they create plasma, which is disorganized atoms. I'm not going to try to explain it to you. Just understand that they create plasma at 50 million degrees or thereabouts, and since that didn't ignite into a nuclear fire either, they in the experiments that preceded this, they have increased the amount of fuel that they are putting into the fire. So that's what ITAR is about, is increasing the amount of fuel that they figured they could put in. Well, at some point it will ignite as a nuclear fire. It is not combining hydrogen atoms into helium. The sun does not produce helium. You know, their claim is that the sun produces helium with every BTU that it generates. In other words, the whole universe should be full of helium, and it certainly is not. It's a rare element. Nonetheless, the whole issue of fusion is that they can change the atom from hydrogen, an atomic weight that is hydrogen, to an atomic weight that is helium. In other words, they can increase the mass of an atom by smashing it together. Of course, when they smash atoms together, you get a bomb. But regardless of that, we'll just not avoid that whole thing. Well, let's look at what they mean when they're going to put atoms together. Atoms are individual items, individual atomic environments, and the proton actually spins. It goes round and round, and when you try to add something into a spinning object, it just glances off the side, and that is what has protected us so far. You can't just add something to a spinning object. Now, as far as whether it spins or not, you can understand the significance of that simply by understanding what an atomic bomb is. And there are bits and pieces of news out there that will show you what the mass of an atomic weapon, a nuclear 20-ton megaton, which means 20 million tons of material, will be moved when this explodes. You can see the atomic fuel that is in that bomb. They show it to you once in a while, and it's basically less mass than a softball. Okay? That's how much material it takes to move 20 million tons of Earth. So it's not very much. Did you get that? It's not very much. And they say that their ITAR says that, or ITER says that they get 4 times more energy out of a nuclear fire, what they're intending to do, than a nuclear bomb. That's their plan. Anyway, you can't throw in a spinning object into another spinning object and expect them to stay together. That's not how it works. You just can't do it. So the whole idea of combining atoms, hydrogen to more hydrogen, is a fool's paradise. It's a absolute lie that has no basis in any fact of any kind whatsoever. Anyway, we know that it spins because there's so much energy in an atomic bomb and just the tiny little bit of mass that there is. We know how much, or the scientists say they know how much actual weight of material is in that atomic fuel. And to get the kind of energy out of that mass means that there must be energy in that mass. They have no clue what that is, but what it is a spinning proton. The more it spins, the more momentum it has, and momentum equals force. When you stop it to spin, all the momentum that is going also stops. That's in it, and it explodes. That's where your energy comes from, and it spins at roughly the speed of light squared. And I have a book that explains how that actually happens, but that has no purpose here. So you can't combine spinning atoms to create bigger atoms. They spin it at the speed of light squared. You can't add in another proton to the first proton and make it 2 protons in one and change the element itself. You can't do that. It's just impossible. So they're trying to ignite a fire by frictionally stopping and peeling off the outer portion of the proton and making it burn that way. That's their plan. Anyway, their plan also includes the fact, or the idea, that the sun itself, the fire won't sustain itself because it'll just extinguish itself because there's not enough gravity here on Earth. And I've done this before, but nonetheless, this represents the size of of the largest atom, the largest elemental part of an atom, the largest piece that actually exists in physical time. This is it. And that's because it spins so fast that it just simply flies away if it gets bigger than that. Can't be contained in the same environment. But your scientists say that this isn't the limits. This is the limits. They say that the Earth, or the Sun, must contain gravitons, which are supposedly 15 times greater than the size of an atom of lead, which is a very big particle. That too simply doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. There is no physical evidence for that whatsoever, not in any portion, part, or thing. And of course they say that the sun burns hottest at the core, which of course means all the fuel is on fire, which means that fuel will not last. They say that the sun is made of hydrogen, and of course hydrogen is a gas, the lightest element of all. And of course, the heaviest object supposedly in this solar system cannot be made of the lightest element. All they see, they get a spectrograph from the sun, which shows that hydrogen is escaping a little bit. And that's because, like smoke from a chemical fire, the hydrogen represents the smoke of an atomic fire. The smallest elements go through just a teeny bit. And then, of course, we have a solar flare, and the longest solar flares that they can physically measure are about 12 million miles long. So they say that the flames on the sun are about 1 million miles long. And that's a realistic evaluation of that, actually. 12 million miles, and a solar flare, they say they don't know what it is, but of course they do. It's the addition of more fuel. It's a pocket of fuel that gets thrown up into the flames that is suddenly burst into a bigger density of flame, and it escapes. And then of course we have a solar tornado, which means that something beneath on the surface that actually is producing the fuel has been resistant to being torn apart into atoms for the fire to burn. And so the fire just sucks down onto it and pulls it up that way. We have then, looking at iter.org, their machine in France. It is in France, but of course burning the entire planet means that we are all involved. Burning that thing, once it ignites, we're done. There's no putting out a nuclear fire. Everything is fuel. Everything is made of atoms. That means everything is fuel. And once, of course, it hits the ocean, which will be almost immediate, it has that much more fuel that will be sucked in so fast that it will literally be a fire on this planet that rises to the state of about 1 million miles, as is on the sun, apparently. And 1 million miles is 4 times farther than the moon is to this planet. So the moon will be ignited on fire, and it'll be then sucked in and crash into the earth. Not that it really matters. But once the fire ignites, the ITAR people, when they get their ignition of fire, of atoms, they predict that it will be 4 million miles, or 4 million times more energy output than the energy input, than a chemical fire. And that means that, for all intents and purposes, a 1-inch candle becomes the height of a flame on top of a candle is 1 inch, and it rises, so 4 million times more than that is 4 million inches above that, or 63.13 miles high, just from a candle. And of course, they're putting in 50 megawatts of energy, 50 million watts of energy, to accomplish getting this thing ignited, which we can't survive, which of course immediately explodes. You can't change something from 1 to 4 million times more without a change. That's a bomb. And it will immediately destroy the entire area that it sits in, melting it into a plasma that then burns, and that plasma will, as soon as it needs fuel, draw up from the ground, from the rocks or whatever, the fuel it needs, the atoms, and it will feed itself from that point on until it actually circles the globe, in which case it becomes a sphere of fire, and that sphere of fire then has to broaden and rise above the planet so that there's room for the heat. And that's a whole another thing, but nonetheless, you can see that there is a reason to be a little bit concerned about whether or not they know what they're doing, whether or not they are intentionally leading you astray and intentionally playing games, because that's just all they want to do. Arrogance is a terrible thing. And of course, on one side they say we're going to get 4 million times more energy out of this than what we put into it. And on the other hand, they say that their 50 million watts of electricity that they put into it is only going to turn into 10 times more than that and become a 500 megawatt power plant. Well, of course, that's a lie, and they're hiding the truth. They're just plain lying. They're just plain lying there because they don't want to stop. Because, of course, it's their job. And if they stop, or if they prove themselves to be wrong, then they have been spending all the money, and they've been lying and swindling and fraud and all that stuff, and they don't want to do it. They'd rather kill you, the whole planet. And of course, there are many more. There's 35 countries involved in that. So, regardless, genetics, mutilation are the same. Nature is genetics. Genetics are nature. Genetics build the body of life. If you screw it up, there is no nature. There is no body of life. They're intentionally screwing it up because their religion, evolution, is just a religion. There's no basis for it whatsoever. It's just a fool's paradise. It's a witch doctor chanting in front of you. It's you can't build a body one piece at a time. Think about it. You can't build a body one piece at a time. It won't work. You need blood for your heart. You need a way to pump up the blood. You need a way to oxygenate the blood. You can't build a body one piece at a time. There are 206 bones in a human body. And they all place themselves in exactly the right place, and they all grow, and they all attach themselves to muscles and to ligaments and things, and they all work, which is an extreme reality of engineering. And then there are 600 individual muscles in a human body that all have to be put together in the right order. They all have to be operated in the right sequence and in the right way, or the body doesn't work. There are many, many things that the university has lied to you about. And of course, the cult that worships the university and believes that we can be gods. The university is God. They don't want none of it to be revealed that they've been lying. And of course, it's like all believers. Once you have taken away their belief, then they're cast adrift and don't know what to do. I've dealt with believers from time to time, and even if you produce a massive amount of undisputable evidence, they might be changed for a moment or two, but after a little bit, they'll run back in their hole, tighten down the lid, and you can't pull them back out of there with a chain and a bulldozer. That's what belief does for you. Belief is, of course, I want what I want, and that's all I want, and I don't want nothing else. And of course, that really doesn't work. Not for life. Truth works for life. Truth lets us survive by the laws that govern us, that govern the boundaries that exist between species, and of course the CRISPR genetic alteration that has just come into beginning to take shape to destroy nature is just that. They're going to destroy nature. They're going to change the boundaries between species, and that's going to bring pandemic after pandemic after pandemic, and bodies of life you cannot even recognize anymore. And that's basically all I have to say. You know, fight for your world or die. I'm not going to fight for you anymore. Means I'm not going to fight for this planet anymore, because it is humanity that threatens it. Yeah, I'll help you fight for your world if that seems realistic to me, but that's it. I'm done fighting for you. You either fight for yourself or you die. Makes no real difference to me at this point. Well, I hate to say that, but I'd have to honestly state that while I'll, hope for individuals, you'll have to prove that you have, some value within you that is going to save this planet and its life. Because until this date, you have proven exactly the opposite of that in every conceivable way. I forgot to re-mention that the Bible, you don't have a lot of time. The Bible has a prophecy about the end of time. It's Daniel 12. And it goes something like, when the great abomination rises, that starts the countdown. And a great abomination is to gamble the entire planet by igniting sunfire here. Because if it doesn't extinguish itself, the planet is dead. You're dead. Everything is dead. Even the solar system has changed. You can't have a bigger abomination than that. So that is the starting date of that process, that countdown. And the starting date was at Lawrence Livermore Laboratories, April Fool's Day, 2012. You can take the numbers of the Bible and go from there. The first death represents the Old Testament. The law could save you. You pass that by. The second death is like the New Testament. Mercy can save you. But it ends on July 9th, by my count, on 2019. So hell begins the next day, and then it has, a time of times and a half a time. And that really represents the 666 days beyond July 9th, 2019, is the end of the world. That's the biblical prophecy, and I see no reason to discount it based upon the evidence that is in existence right today. You can't survive anything that you've really been doing. Your universities are God to you. Unfortunately, they're also Satan, because the destruction of the world by extreme arrogance is what Satan technically is. It's what you chose. You follow them. You worship them. You give them your money. You let them do anything they want to do. Anything. From mutilating nature to playing with the sun. Anything. They are God to you, and you are their cult. Such a pity. You were made for more.